but I don't see any reason that I need to be saying, no, that person's wrong because they only see 19. So I guess maybe it's
Could somebody else be wrong about anything?
I don't know if you guys are big TV fans, but if you ever watch The Righteous Gemstones, I feel like it's actually one of the most accurate depictions of the Southern megachurch.
It's on my list.
Oh my gosh, you
Have I
should.
seen that yet?
It's
If
it's a great comedy, super raunchy, very good.
I will watch that soon.
But I always am curious, to your point, of how people, I think beliefs are indeed ingrained. But like for myself, I haven't ever been back to the church since and have no desire to.
Well, this whole method and movement, and there's it's a very diverse group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So street epistemology is not only a verb, it's also a noun. There's a group of people that do it. And it largely started in response to evangelical movements in America and
Sure.
religions overall. Kind of started with a couple of books.
Yeah.
And then it grew into a YouTube channel that kind of blew up, and then other YouTube channels started propping up. And we all kind of do it a little different, but there's all this. It's generally truth focused.
Love that.
And methods focused, and
Yeah.
I think it's just really the way we gotta
It's really fascinating.
talk to another. Yeah, and look it up. There's all this info
I will.
on it, and you
Yeah.
can maybe learn it and apply it. And there's video examples on my channel, and
Yeah,
thanks for stopping,
I'm
y'all.
excited. Thank you.
was
Thank
super
you.
cool.
Thank you. Good luck today.
Indeed.
Hopefully, you guys get a few more
Yeah.
takers to come sit down. It's a pleasure.
Thanks again for stopping.
You want
Yeah.
another
Oh,
one?
you
I'm
wanna do it?
interested
I know,
now.
do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's interested.
I don't know if I'll do the
give you
survey
your own.
option though, because that's going to
Whoa.
take me forever to do.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so excited.
What do you two
Whoa,
should
this
do
is
it?
awesome. You go ahead.
Because I think
Yeah.
I think I'll have a little bit different
No, he
opinion
definitely
as well.
will.
Just different lifestyles and
I have an experiment
okay.
that I've been wanting to practice a little bit
Do
more.
it. I'm a scientist by trade, so that works great.
This one's going to be easy, I think. But the experiment is basically me just asking one question.
Okay.
I'll ask the question, and then if I need to clarify or break it down or whatever, because it's kind of a mouthful,
Okay.
and maybe you can help me rephrase the question to where it's better understandable or more concise, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The question is basically, why are you convinced that the main reason that you're currently using to support a conclusion that you hold is a sufficient enough reason to support the confidence that you have that the conclusion is true?
Why am I confident in the reasoning that I'm using to prove to myself that something is true?
Yeah, sort of. Like, think of a conclusion that you hold that you're pretty confident in. And now think of the main reason that supports it. I'm curious why you're convinced that reason is a good enough reason to support that much confidence. And so we don't have to talk about what the conclusion is. We don't even have to talk about what the main reason is. I'm curious to why you're convinced that reason supports that much confidence.
So if I use evidence from my own eyesight as my reasoning, as to back up the confidence I have that that crazy thing that happens in the bottom of the ocean is true because I saw it with my own eyes, is that what you're getting at? Why do I feel
That would be like,
so? Because I saw it with my own two eyes.
Uh-huh.
That is what provides me my confidence.
okay,
That outlandish statement that the male fish becomes a parasite on the female and withers away as they mate for life, right? It's just a crazy scenario, but because I saw it happen and, Mr. Attenborough told me so, now I believe that to be true.
gotcha. So the main reason is observation.
For me, yes.
Okay,
I would say
so the main reason is observation. Now, is this something actually that you think is true? Is the case?
I do believe it to be true, yes.
Okay, and you're using observation to support it, right?
I'm using observation from one instance that I viewed and the observations that you could also classify as data points
Uh-huh.
that others have viewed the exact same scenario repeated times throughout history in the environment.
And 0 to 100, what's your confidence that it's true?
99.6.
99.6. Okay, so back to the main question. Why is your personal observation a strong enough reason to support 99.6% confidence in something being true?
Because I don't really care if anybody else thinks it's true to start with. So if I'm defining my truth as something that I observe in my own presence, my own reality, I mean, I could kind of care less if you thought it was true or you thought it was true.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the defining characteristics, I guess, of how I define truth, is what I deem to be, I don't necessarily want to use truth and facts as synonyms here, but I guess in this scenario, I'm using that as a fact. I'm calling
Kind of
that a
sounds like
fact.
you're saying you see something to be true, and it's true regardless of what other people feel about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could probably start characterizing that as faith to some degree, which, the premise, the backbone of what we're discussing now is essentially the same, in my view.
Okay. So back to observation
Yeah.
and your confidence.
Yeah.
Could someone use observation, their personal observation, to arrive at a conclusion that is not correct or not accurate?
I mean, how do we want to define accurate?
If it corresponds with reality or our shared world.
I mean, everybody's reality is different, right?
How many realities are there?
And there's an infinite number of realities. I mean, if you want to look at, I am, I'm a bit of an anxious individual. I am a sort of a worst case scenario person. I wish so hard, so badly sometimes, that I was one of those carefree, the world is peachy and everything's green and bright, but that's not the reality that I live in. For whatever reason, the personal things I've gone through in my life, the things I haven't gone through in my life, that shapes my own reality. So I think everybody has their own reality to a certain degree. If you want to define reality as the one planet Earth, okay, fine, we all live in the same reality. But the way you handle yourself within that reality, to me, gives everybody their own unique reality. Like,
And there's infinite number of those realities, you're saying?
yeah, I mean, not like Inception or the Matrix, you know, I'm not saying there's 14 different dimensions or anything like that, because I don't know. But if somebody wants to believe that, if they choose to live in that reality and firmly believe that that's the way it is, then yeah, they're, in my opinion, they're in their own reality.
Does that make it so?
Uh, you know, if they are defining their, if they are if they have defined, if they had made that observation, if they had made that truth within their own reality, that that's how they see it, then who are we, who are anybody to say that it's not true?
So, somebody say that in their reality, there's a different number of Tic Tacs in here than if we counted them. So, like if we counted them, and we counted them 1,000 times,
Mm-hmm.
and each time we counted them, we came up with 20.
Sure.
And somebody walks up and says, "Well, in my reality, there's not 20." Would that make it so?
It would make it so for them. I mean, it doesn't have to be so for me in order for it to be so for somebody else, right? That's why we're all individuals and not one homogeneous glob of human flesh rolling around the earth, right? So it's me personally, no, there's 20 Tic Tacs in there. That's the box. If that's our defining parameters, then that is what it is. But I don't see any reason that I need to be saying, no, that person's wrong because they only see 19. So I guess maybe it's
Could somebody else be wrong about anything?
I mean, again, if that's what they choose to believe in, I'm not going to waste my breath trying to tell them that they are wrong if they truly believe that. That's a waste of a that's a waste of energy, in my opinion.
Can I try something real fast?
Sure.
It's my reality that you're wearing my hat.
Would you like it back?
Yeah.
I mean, you can have it.
Okay.
It
It's my reality that you shouldn't have rights. Would you give those up too?
no, and because my truth is that those are my rights. I have observed myself, you know.
It's my truth. You don't have them. How do
Well,
we?
then-
How do we? How do we resolve that?
Well, I think my first thought would be it's okay that you believe that. I don't think we're going to get to a place that resolves that unless you express an openness to think differently. You know, you got to start somewhere. And that sort of extreme stance, right? We're starting at two polar opposite ends of a very short spectrum, but opposite ends of the discussion topic, right? And you know, me personally, I probably wouldn't even waste the breath, but because I don't believe that everybody needs to think the same way, and that being said, I certainly stand firm on my stance that I have my rights and you can't touch them because they're mine. It's
And you're
very
saying
basic.
it's important to be open to thinking different.
I think that it is extremely important to be able to step away and remove the emotional component from in this case, a very personal discussion in order to try and understand the point of view of others. It is okay to do that when you disagree with their stance. It does not make you any more conforming to the opposite agenda or the opposite stance. But if you don't have the resolve and the strength to take a step out of your own shoes and try to understand why you feel I don't have rights, why do you think that I don't have rights, using whatever facts or observations that you have to get you to your stance, then I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm not going to learn how you think. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to learn, if I did want to try and tackle the argument, how to maneuver and how to win said discussion, right? The easiest way to gain the advantage in that discussion would be to better understand where your point of view comes from. That way you can, attack the root, attack the foundation, and build up from there, rather than a top-down approach, I guess, is one way to put it. It's going to be real hard to get through that thick, wall that they have put up from all the observations that they have gained throughout their presence. And so, long-winded answer, but I think being able to remove yourself is absolutely crucial. Even if you wholeheartedly disagree, right? I'm not really a political person, not a religious person, but I can totally, I feel I am good at letting myself try to understand folks where they come from, regardless of how crazy their observations or their truth or facts are that have brought them to their consensus. Everybody's reality is different. It's people are products of their environment. It's you got to give folks a chance to explain themselves, and if you don't want to, you're gonna have a really closed in experience while we're here.
Cool.
I think one good example, I'm an environmental scientist, and I had a manager back in the day who was devout Catholic, and he was a geologist. And I always thought it was interesting, a devout Catholic, Notre Dame, green and gold through and through sort of guy, wonderful human. But I was like, man, you got to explain this to me, because these are two conflicting atmospheres, right? These are sort of two conflicting agendas, and he wasn't the guy that took every line literal. But there are many things that say when the earth was created, when man was created, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they do not align with especially the science of geology, right? Like, especially geology. So, like, how the hell does this work?
Yeah.
And
I'm curious how he may have squared the belief system. Seems like it'd be in conflict with his observation.
absolutely. And the data that he is looking at all the time and the things that he wrote his thesis on, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought that his response was fantastic, and it was, let's see if I can remember the exact language that he used, or I'll just summarize it. He turned to me and he said, eventually, through the scientific process, you still get to a point that you can't answer. You still end up at a question at the end of the scientific process that doesn't have an answer. And that's where he believes that the higher power comes into action, has a force, has an effect. And as a scientist, a person that is rooted in observation and data analysis, facts, etc., you can't argue with that belief. You can't argue with that mindset. And I thought it was a very intelligent way to think about it. And
like the God fills the gaps.
Yeah, to a certain degree, because science gets better every year, every day. We are able to drill down further and further and further, but there's always going to be that next question. And until we develop the scientific method that allows us to get the answer to that next question, we don't know how the hell it's happening or why it is the way that it is. And the reality that he chooses to live in is he wants to put that unknown in a higher power, a higher being, a force, collective, whatever it is. And I think that's totally fine.
It's really coming down.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
Do you have any questions for me?
It's really coming down.
Probably.
Well, you can check out the YouTube channel and
Yeah.
think about it and ask me there if you want.
Cool. I will do that. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That was great. What was your first name again?
Anthony.
Anthony. Cool. Thanks again for stopping.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff.
Right on.
Love it.
Have you had a lot of takers today?
You're number 4, including Maria, right?
Oh, nice.
You
I
have
think
two?
so. It's 4 total.
For how long have you been out here?
Yeah, I know. It's really
Couple
time
hours already.
consuming.
I know, it feels like it's only been like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I've had full days of being out in the field and not publishing anything. So
Those have to be tough.
yeah, but at the same time, they're fruitful because
Yeah.
you're practicing and you're.
And you learn something, I'm sure.
The hardest part is getting out and doing it. So if you can
Yeah.
do that,
Arranging it.
that's half the
Yeah.
battle. And then you might luck out and get some really interesting conversation,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
one that
Yeah.
is borderline contentious but doesn't quite get there, or
Yeah.
one in which somebody is like really the ones that I like the most are when people are just truly reflective.
Yeah.
They're just looking inwards and they're like pondering.
Yeah.
Those are to me gold.
Yeah.
That's all
Absolutely.
I really care about. And if they can get me to ponder too, then awesome.
Yeah.
But the idea is I want to inspire the audience to be more curious,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
ask some good questions. But yeah, it was
Love
Good
it.
deal.
So fun, you guys.
Cool.
I can't wait. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks
Y'all have
again.
a good time.
thanks a
luck.
lot.
Yeah. Is that one of your water bottles?
It is. It's
Okay.
Anthony. Yeah.
Okay, good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
all.
nice to meet you guys.
Enjoy
All
your
of
walk.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Wow.
That was on 2 wheels for Poor Wise for a second. I felt
Really?
like. Well,
Oh.
I sensed that as well, a little. I sensed a little bit of that.
Well,
Only,
it was
Two
into
wheel-
the rights question.
yeah, I started noticing there was a
Well,
little
he knows.
conflation between normative claims and truth claims, like claims about what's right versus or what ought to be versus like reality claims.
I think
Truth claims.
that people are. I think he in that instance was using two definitions of reality.
Yeah.
And he
Hey, yo, we just freed up. We just freed up.
coming?
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit.
Right now.
Oh, you on a mission? All right.
I gotta get my kids Crocs real quick.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think he needed a separate word. Even if we would have
Then
just
truth?
No, reality.
Reality.
Oh,
We had
yeah.
two definitions
So
of
I
reality
do.
going.
My recommendation is to replace it with universe
No.
or cosmos.
He was saying that people had.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Back.
We're
Anthony
debriefing.
did bring up a good point. He
Yeah.
wanted to make sure,
Oh yeah.
which religion and the ministry.
Oh,
But I've which part?
In your
I know. In your
In
interview.
mine.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
the-
That's fair.
Just about the ministry.
The thing I usually do, not every interviewer does this, but I like to do this once in a while, is get your contact info. So if there's any doubt in any of this, I can like send you the audio at least, and you can be like, yo, I'm embarrassed or whatever. Like our goal is not to like ruin your professional career.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. I don't.
But
But,
someone else
but
is-
also at the same time, like not enough people watch this shit.
Well,
for it
that's
to
why I was
really
like, I
matter.
feel
You should
like
just let
it's
us do
more
it.
incriminating towards the dude in question that was using.
Yeah, and the off chance that anyone would watch mine and connect those dots, probably
Very
pretty
small.
Very
low.
minimal.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
But you're a bigwig now, and you
I
gotta
know.
protect your.
While we have you back,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were just
If I
because
have
we like to
contact
debrief
info,
after the
Oh, yeah.
conversation,
yeah, there.
and a question came up that you might be able to help us out with.
Number and an
is-
email I could send
what-
an audio to.
What definition for reality were you
Cool.
using during?
Is it cool if I do just
'Cause I
publish
think
it?
you might
if I'm like,
have
oh,
had
cool, I'll
two
take out
definitions.
anything.
One
Might
for
even not.
because you even mentioned at one
Might
time
just cut
Earth,
the
one
interview
Earth
out.
reality,
Sure.
and then
No
each
words.
person's reality.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wonder, like, we almost need a separate word for like what is one person's reality.
So
like,
if you look up the dictionary definition of reality, definition number one is
The environment.
it's like the cosmos. Yeah, the environment essentially, like all things
Sure.
that are.
Sure.
And then reality definition number two is what's happening in the mind.
oh wow, so the dictionary even has two different.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's used in two different ways, but especially, and this is actually a regional thing in Portland, because I've done this in multiple states
Right.
around the country, especially this guy. He does traveling
Yeah.
for it. Portland is uniquely heavy on number two as a
Oh, yeah.
definition, whereas they use the word their reality is different than my reality, and that is very particular to Portland. You
Huh.
go outside of Portland or the Northwest
I was gonna say
in particular,
Northwest, probably.
you're going to get a lot more reality as number one definition, which is the reality that I was born into, that was here before I was here. And oddly enough, even though I'm from Portland and I grew up here, I've always had a heavier emphasis on number one in my own mind. And that had led to a lot of disputes with other people that I knew in arguments.
In the city.
Like prior to adopting this dialectic, prior to like talking
it.
this way, I would butt heads with people because I couldn't go deeper into how they were interpreting and using words in a more careful way. And like this dialectic has helped me slow down that
Yeah.
process. Oh wait, hold on. What do you mean by this?
Yeah.
Right?
That's huge in all of this.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
How do you define facts? How do you define evidence?
Totally.
How do you define
Yeah.
belief?
That's
All
number
that.
4
But you
Yeah.
can just
on the survey. People
Yeah.
create words and define what they mean.
And that's
And
where,
Yeah.
that's
They're
where
gonna be
this
different.
comes
What
in
did I say
handy.
to that?
Like
No.
someone's reality could be that there's an odd number of Tic Tacs in here when there's actually an even number.
in their reality.
In their reality, yeah.
Right.
And
Though
so that's
in
why-
reality,
Mhm.
the number one definition, is there a number?
Like, so that's why I was curious.
There's always one.
Yeah.
This is exhausting, you guys.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe you can help me understand what you meant by reality when it could be someone's reality that this is even when we count them and they come up with odd. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm asking?
I do. I think what I was getting at was I was sort of explaining that I believe that there can be separate realities because one is
And how are you
In
using
tune with the
one
na-
or two right now?
uh,
Separate realities meaning separate minds, or separate realities is meaning separate external worlds?
okay. I see what you're saying.
Right.
I believe that everybody has their own number two reality.
Yes. Yeah.
And in that, following along those lines of reasoning, sure, there's 12 or there's 20. Like, who am I to jump into their reality and try to disprove them? That being said,
My question would be, is there a right answer to that question? Is there an accurate,
Is there a correct answer to the
irrespective
question
of what anyone thinks?
how many Tic Tacs are in here, regardless of minds?
There is one answer in my mind.
Which is what it sounded like you said during your interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is it's the number of Tic Tacs that we have physically counted in that box together,
Yeah.
or separately.
And in my mind, minds are irrelevant. In my mind, minds do not matter. There is a number.
And
That
that's
number
the
is
number.
independent of what anyone thinks.
Correct.
And we figure it out
Yeah.
by counting. And that's our method to counting.
Yep.
But it's
Yeah.
whatever the number is
Is
the number.
So how would you answer number 2 on here?
Yeah, number two is the survey one.
Unless someone, had a different definition
What did I say?
Yeah.
of
I gotta
how
keep
to
going back.
determine the number.
to my
You know,
own survey.
if they don't follow along with the general basic rules of mathematics and counting,
Oh yeah, I said I
then
agree.
who are we to say that they're wrong in the way that they reason with the things around them in the world?
Right. And that would be the conversation that we have about figuring out what's true.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we're talking on an abstract level about how we are conceptualizing these concepts. And the general discussion we'd like to have is the number dependent on minds, or is it independent?
Video.
Them?
So how would you
Yeah, because if
answer
it's
number 2?
Yeah.
if it's dependent on
Uh,
minds, then we're like manifesting what's real. And if it's
that's scary.
independent of minds, then we're discovering what's real
Yeah.
and true.
I think that question 2 does. I would probably answer it strongly agree.
Strongly agree.
I think so, because again, this sort of goes back to the one holistic global reality, and then everybody else is living in their own within the common collective of a realm of space.
But I guess my question just to the world in that circumstance is when do you draw the line? Like Anthony is of the mindset, or at least this is what I gathered from your statement, to just let that person believe that false information. Like if you believe there are 25, but there are actually 20,
Yeah.
your philosophy is like, who cares? Let them believe there's 25, right?
I mean, again, it all becomes situationally situation dependent. If it is something related to my safety or someone else's
Sure,
safety
sure.
or someone else's well-being, all of those criteria matter. But I mean, if it is literally just allowing someone to be wrong because they're happier that way,
That's 50.
why would somebody want to take it away from them?
Except in the circumstance where somebody wants to take away your rights.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I'm not gonna let that one go.
So there's sometimes when you're fine with it, sometimes when you're not fine with it.
Of course. Yeah.
And even then, rights is a normative claim. So normative claims are like, this is the way things ought to be. And generally with the interviews I typically want to do, it's like what is real and true, which is what is. So there's what is and what ought to be. That is ought distinction. You don't think so?
This is not a normative claim that I made that he has no rights.
Oh.
Yeah, because he said he was going to take his rights.
Yeah, it's my truth and my reality.
Okay, yeah,
You
that
don't
is an
have
is
those
claim,
rights.
not claim. That it technically is an is claim because
You would give me your hat, but you wouldn't give me your rights.
So you just use your phone?
It's
Oh, I
interesting.
mean, still don't know if I'd give you my hat, but you can think that it's yours, and then I'd walk away with
Would
it.
I be wrong?
or mistaken or using his imagination.
Inaccurate, incorrect.
There's lots of
To,
different
to
words.
me, you'd be wrong. Yeah.
Stripped down, small version.
But,
Right, and I guess he's asking, is
But
there an
that's me.
objective
video?
answer, like with the number of candies in the box? Is there an answer
I got you.
not to him, but just an answer?
Oh, you're doing interview
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, you'd be wrong.
Yeah, and that's
So it sounds like you're
yeah.
understanding why I was confused with the answers that you were giving me. About, on one hand, everybody has their own reality, and on the other hand, there's one reality that we all interpret differently.
Yep.
It's also weird though, because it's like rights are
Well,
dependent on where you are,
this
which are
this
also
is an
dependent on the
example
body of
like
government.
raising the stakes
Yeah,
to see where that line is, where somebody will say, "No, I'm not."
rights
gonna
is a
accept,
hard one
I'm
though.
not going to accept that it's your reality and that it's your truth that that I don't have rights.
Yeah.
Like giving me your hat because I think that it's true that it's mine is one thing, but giving away your rights because somebody else thinks it's in their reality that you don't have them.
It's the same thing though. It's just on a
That's
different
what I
scale.
think. But it's like
The examples of
until the
confusing.
rubber hits the road, it's okay to let people believe.
The example is a less than perfect example, though, only because, like, that's a camera. And that's a camera, whether or not anyone thinks it's a camera, that's the function it operates under. That's what it does.
I
But-
don't know. In my reality, it's a paperweight.
Right.
Yeah, that's a Jimmy
So now
Jake
we're getting
black
in.
box.
If you drill too far, you hit the bedrock of epistemology and go straight into ontology. And God, ontology sucks. It is so boring. But it's like, what is a chair? Is it a chair now because I took this thing off or whatever? But like, yeah.
Do you see why I raised the stakes?
Yeah, because well, it's important. It was important to. Yeah, I see why. I see why you did that. It's at the same time, rights are very much a construct that aren't embodied physically in the world, right?
Yeah.
So they're because
people
they're not
aren't-
embodied physically. Can you really say they are?
People aren't
Irrespective
ready
of
to
minds,
give
they
them
kind
up.
of are mind dependent,
Yeah.
right? So because the nature of what a right is.
It's something that most people aren't willing to give up very easily, and that's why.
Definitely not. Well,
Right.
That's why it matters.
right.
And that's
does
when
matter.
it would matter.
Because you
And
gotta.
I think, especially as it relates now with women, just being a woman with rights in this country, having them tested constantly by men all the time. And it just blows my mind that men seem to consistently sit in their seats of power and tell us that we can or cannot do things with our bodies. Mind-boggling.
That's why I've been trying to drag
Like-
you out here every day.
Okay, it's mind-boggling,
I don't want to
but
be
it is one
just
of those
another,
things where it's
another
like,
number.
whether I want to give it up or not, at a certain point, the only power that I have in control in that decision is my right to vote, which thank God still exists today. May not in God knows how many years, depending on which way we go in this election. But today, I still have that right to vote, and that's the only chance that I have to keep my autonomy to my own body right now. And that's a fact.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
Unfortunately.
Ever so slightly, just barely over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So not even that long.
But, I mean, truly, like
Of a
it's
right.
it's barely exactly. It's barely a right
Barely.
at this point
In the grand scheme of
in the
human
grand
history,
scheme of rights,
Yeah.
you know. But
And in
yeah,
some countries they don't.
it's still not a
correct.
global
it's still
thing
not
now.
a global right.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, it is dependent on so many factors, but is important, I feel like, in the overall grand scheme of the conversation,
Yeah.
tangible or otherwise.
Yeah,
Thanks for clarifying, because that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that helps me.
I see what you were trying to do by raising it.
Yeah,
The importance.
Yeah,
The
'cause
stakes.
You're trying to get more of a distinct or cut and dry response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the line?
Yeah, what's the line?
Yeah, where's the line where it's okay to accept somebody else's reality? You know,
Yeah.
how it affects you.
Sure.
Mhm.
Exactly, and that's like the repercussions of it. You know, if it starts threatening safety or general well-being, I mean, you could create a huge long list.
This was the whole COVID vaccine debate.
Yes.
Right? Should they have their autonomy to not get vaccinated in the height of the pandemic, or
Mhm.
must we adhere to each other's, protect each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
By getting, like, that was the big push,
Yeah.
was for the greater good, because you could potentially hurt someone if you don't get
Right.
vaccinated.
And then there was also the if you force people, does it actually work?
Yeah.
Or is it better to try
Again,
to
we didn't
say,
have a
we're
lot of
not
time
forcing
for
you, would that
observation.
actually make more people do it?
On that, which
Yeah,
was one
yeah.
thing that I
Mandates
think would
or
have
not.
helped.
Mhm.
It's all
The
just,
scenario.
a balancing act.
It was so rushed.
Totally.
Is it okay if this part is on the video too?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's good. I mean, it's a big difference between the two, in my opinion. And I think something else I thought of just as it relates to beliefs and truths, just in our country specifically, because you brought up like the global concept of realities and truths
Freedoms
and rights and
rights.
freedoms. It's interesting to me that we have a Supreme Court that functions in the way that it functions. Like, I feel like it's very stacked in a way that just doesn't, just our government in general, quite frankly, like the fact that we even had anyone that was 80 running for office, and now, like, if I'm a felon, I can't apply for a job, but apparently I can be the president. Like, that's perplexing to me.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
like, I mean, truly, like, if I go and
Yeah.
apply to McDonald's, I can't get a job. Well, maybe at McDonald's I could, but like, if I wanted to apply to my company today, I would not be hired because I am a felon. But yeah, he still can
You
run.
see a double standard.
It's just the double standards, and I think it's largely rooted in that, this one court has, this one high court has truly all the power in holding these rights of ours hostage in a way.
Is there a better way to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there's
Well,
better.
well,
Well, I
Definitely.
think that's why the rights question might be a little sticky, because it's like you're using rights in the sense of how they're determined by law and in documentation that men wrote.
The
like-
construct. of it.
Somewhat arbitrary.
Right.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
in reality, everyone has their own rights, their own personal rights that they.
Only to an extent, though, according to this government. Because my rights will end at a certain point depending on which state I'm in right now. As a woman. Like, if I got pregnant and tried to abort this child because I might die,
Yeah.
and I'm in Texas, I could be also a felon and then no longer able to get my job. And that is where, for me, it's not it's not a clear, cut and dry thought process.
I think that's why it's important for people to have a good grasp on why they believe stuff,
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
because that affects the way that they vote, and that's the way
Truly.
that affects their behavior and how they treat others.
Furthermore, the more you have a grasp on articulating why you believe stuff,
Right.
the more likely someone else can hear you accurately
Correct.
and maybe be moved by that, but then also the chances of you listening to others also goes up too.
100%.
Because if you can be straight with yourself on how to articulate it, and that was a question I didn't ask with you, but I do want to start putting into my interviews, is asking people, 1 to 10, how articulate are you?
Ooh.
Five-
He was just asking you. Say
Five is
Yeah,
five is
loaded
average
question.
Yeah.
average American maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you? Do you think you're more articulate than the average American? Less?
100%.
And then just to kind of gauge how
I
much
don't think I'm the best.
how much forgiveness I can give them
Yeah.
for being inarticulate.
Inarticulate, yeah.
You know?
Well, and I will say, like,
Because sometimes that's what it comes down to. It's like they have it in their head. It's just
Correct.
getting it out they struggle with.
it's true, which sometimes is a thing for me, especially sitting in front of cameras. But
Yeah.
like a girlfriend of mine that has been a girlfriend of mine for years, diehard Republican, voted for Trump,
Wow.
went and saw her during the Trump presidency, and we've maintained a good friendship even despite this this fact, believe it or not. Sat across from me at dinner, and she brought it up. She was like, "Well, you know, I'm never going to be pro-choice," and I was like, "That's okay.
Hmm.
You don't. I'm not asking you to be pro-choice, but for me, in my seat, if you were going to die because you're going to give birth to this baby, or you could have an abortion, and I selfishly, which I acknowledge, selfishly get to keep you in my life and you get to be my friend, that's my choice. Always, every time, hands down." But I think that's like the, some of the biggest points for me for rights is like, we just have to allow people to have the autonomy to decide for themselves in many cases. And I don't think we do that very, very well.
So she told you, I will never change my mind, essentially.
Well, I
Is
think,
that
and
right?
it's funny, Anthony and I were just talking about this because I'm going to see
I
her.
imagine it was the first time that anybody had challenged that stance of hers in a very long time, given
My
her environment.
my favorite way to have to respectfully challenge something like that. Like, so the tagline for my channel is "Be the open mind you wish to encounter."
Yeah. That's great.
And if somebody says, "I'm never gonna change," whatever it is, doesn't even matter what it is. I mean, it's more important to me if it's important to me, obviously. But if I hear that, because I'm also more or less pro-choice, would be, first of all, does that mean you'll never change? Does that mean you're closed-minded to changing? If I said the opposite and also held that epistemology of I will never change on this thing, how would you feel about my thought process on that? That's an outsider test, so it's like, I'll just do what you're doing. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
And explore that with them.
Yeah.
Apply a little outsider test next time you hear something like that.
Yeah. I will.
It's
curious.
In that is such a embedded, difficult argument.
It's a little-
abortion, the issue of abortion.
Period.
That
yeah.
my guess is they would expect to hear that in response, and it would just be an ongoing stalemate, like it has been nationally. I don't know that would stimulate them to a new way of thinking or opening the conversation.
My goal would be to reveal their reasons, that if those reasons were to be taken away, it would affect their thought process to their own standards. So that's the direction I would want to go with the conversation. Let's make a pie chart of all of your reasons, and if I take away this slice of pie, is there fewer pizza slices now? Or are there the same number of pizza slices, even though I ate 2 in front of you? And if there are the same number, is it really a reason that you're using? Or are you like a soldier fighting on this hill?
They're going to die on the hill, man.
Yeah.
They really will.
Well, and then we will.
They do.
But
Yeah, they do indeed die on that hill.
The topic's not actually the process of aborting a fetus. It's all rooted in faith,
Religion.
their religion.
Yeah, and then
that's
if
why
that
it's
were
a
to
rough
happen,
example to use.
we move to how do you know this religion is true? And that's why the majority of our videos are more or less about religion. Eventually,
Why is faith reliable enough
Yeah.
to support the confidence that they have in whatever conclusion?
Because
I
it
agree.
allows people to put their fear of the unknown somewhere that they don't have to worry about.
right?
But I
Like the
think
Catholic
Yeah.
geologist.
Yeah, like the geologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a very tiny one.
Yeah.
But it's the fear. If someone has been horribly traumatized for whatever events occurred in their life, and they turn to faith for whatever whatever reasons they have personally, like, to me, that is completely valid.
But
Like,
faith and religion to me are not one and the same.
no, they're not synonymous.
They
but
are not
But it's
synonymous.
obviously, these people have faith that Jesus existed, even though no one has a picture of him that was taken with a, Jimmy
GoPro.
Jig black box. You know what I mean? Like, and so they're all religions based in faith. Nobody can prove it, not even to them. They still understand that it hasn't been proven by the scientific definition of proof, right?
But the hypocrisy in religion is the ironic piece, because they will speak out of both sides of their mouths in religious hot takes. It's like, in one breath, Jesus died on the cross and for my sins, for me to live a righteous life. And then in the next breath, they're like, but you can't be gay, you cannot have abortions, you can't have infidelity, blah, 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 blah. And every one of these bastards cheats on their wives, has multiple abortions, and doesn't talk about it. They drive over the state lines to go get it. And then they're like, but I'm going to church on Sunday and I'm forgiven and I'll go see him at the pearly gates later. And that's just how it goes. If you can get over past east of the Rocky Mountains with this, I would do it.
Oh yeah,
I bet the content would be tip top.
It's a lot less relativistic.
it's way less
I
relativistic.
bet it's boring.
Well, I invite you to
Look at the channel.
Yeah,
Can't
check
wait.
it out.
I'm gonna go check it. I can't wait.
can't
I'm so
imagine there
excited.
being
Although
large
relativism
breadth of
is almost
responses.
always
there's
a
tons.
dead
Really?
stop
Okay, good.
in the
There's some great,
conversation.
Interesting.
Relativism
Mormon stuff.
is just
Yeah.
as bad.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Huh.
In my opinion, relativism causes, like, almost single-handedly false beliefs to just flourish. It is the fertile soil from which false beliefs can sprout
What
and spread.
define relativism?
Like, it's my truth and your truth, and you have your truth and I have my truth. It doesn't even matter what's really true, because
okay.
what I believe is what I believe, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep believing it.
yeah,
which
yeah.
is what I thought.
I was
where
definitely
we were
saying
kind of
that.
skating around.
I was definitely saying that quite a bit, which is hard, but
Oh yeah. I
Again-
was kind of listening, but kind of not.
again, it plays into
Sorry.
what
I was, like,
topic
over
you're
there.
discussing, you know?
Though it doesn't always. It's not always like super bad. It's just that
It can
I
be.
don't know, and maybe it's because haven't learned enough. But
Yeah.
I don't know how we course correct, or begin the path of critical thinking about whether our belief is true or false, unless we acknowledge it might be true or false. If we just say, "Oh, it's true
Whatever you want it
because
to
I
be.
hold it,"
Mm-hmm.
then it's tough. But
It eliminates the possibility of critical thinking.
right, and it's confusing because there are things such as opinions, which are not true or false.
Yeah.
And opinions are in a very different category, so sometimes that kind of muddies things up. But
which is kind of why I was asking you, could anybody be wrong about anything?
and this is why I think the reason why it was probably tough there is because we were talking about rights, and rights are kind of like, it's kind of my opinion that you have this right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when it becomes less concrete, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah.
camera.
Well, it was
exists.
less about that and more about, like, when do you draw the line when somebody claims that it's their reality
Mhm.
that you don't have the rights?
I often will talk about a court of law when I'm stuck at when I'm trying to address
How do we solve
relativism.
disputes if no one can be wrong?
Like, did this person actually commit a murder, or did they not commit a murder? It either did it either happen or not happen, and that's a great way to leverage whether or not it's an objective claim that they're making.
Yeah, why can't someone get off by just saying, but it was my reality? That
Yeah, and
I
they
didn't
really
commit-"
believe it. They really believe they're innocent.
That happens, I'm
All
sure.
the time. Yeah.
Even does that have an impact on whether or not they're actually innocent or not, or is their guilt
Yeah, I mean, that's the
or innocence
mental
independent
assessment
of their
piece
belief
Yeah,
about
or
it?
is it like a
people
mental
claiming
health?
psychosis?
Right?
You know?
Insanity.
Unfortunately,
Something.
it is.
Yeah, like just
Unfortunately,
that they
is
have
true
blacked
sometimes.
out and don't recall
They
the
were
event.
in
I don't know.
another
I mean,
reality.
I feel like it could go
They
so
thought
many
that
ways.
person was a
Although-
five-headed demon.
I'm not convinced that changes what actually happened.
Correct.
Especially if it's something in the past. I have had
Right.
literally had someone in an interview tell me that what we believe now about the past literally fucking changes the past.
Based on what
How
we believe about it.
would that work? How does that work?
I'm confused.
So if I say like it wasn't Columbus, but somebody, or maybe it wasn't, I don't know. It's just like think about a historical thing, and it's like if I change my mind about
Is that
what
Ashton
happened, does that
Kutcher?
actually
Were you in
change?
the butterfly effect?
yeah. But I think
Oh.
somebody said something earlier about it being cultural, like a cultural mindset from like when you're a little kid and being brought up into a belief. That is the way it is.
Absolutely.
And I think
Everyone's a product of their.
as it relates to critical thinking,
Right.
that's the piece that I think terrifies me so much about where we're going today in society. If we keep going down this path and we don't have the ability to think critically and allow our children to continue to challenge ideas and think critically, it's going to be a really freaking Handmaid's Tale scary environment
Yeah.
in no time.
Otherwise, there's the danger of us staying in those ingrained beliefs
Right.
and not, having the guts to kind of challenge them or the awareness.
Guts is a great word because we
Guts.
need to be a little less sensitive too. Like I've been
Correct.
invited to teach this in public schools,
Yeah,
actually,
you
in
should.
town,
Yeah.
and then disinvited because there was worry about.
How it would
Yeah.
ripple.
Well, the excuse was I just don't understand what the vision is for this. But
The vision.
really, we were very clear what
Yeah,
the
yeah,
vision
yeah.
was. It was more so I think that they didn't want people spurring up their deeply rooted ideas and beliefs and their foundational.
And this was in a very
thought process.
left-leaning school.
It was
Oh,
in a
wow.
very
This was,
left-leaning
in,
school.
this was my kid's school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
a
that
charter.
was your school.
It was
Dang.
my kid's, yeah.
Dang.
Charter school.
Because
But
you,
probably the most, like,
Left-leaning.
left-leaning charter school in
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
And I am way more like less ideological than some other SE content creators, I think. Not to be too judgmental about the broader
You gotta
SE
figure out
content.
a process to eliminate the emotional aspect of that, and I think it would be much more digestible for people.
Yeah. Well,
However, beliefs are so intertwined
They
with
are.
emotion.
Yes.
Oh, I know exactly, but that's what I was trying to get to is like if you don't have the wherewithal or the I don't know self-confidence or whatever the hell it is that you want to call it to be able to remove that for a minute, for an hour, and listen to somebody else's point of view, just listen. You don't have to convince anybody to do anything. But
right.
if you don't have the ability within yourself to put your emotions at bay and listen to why the Trumper wants to vote for Trump or why the,
They don't have
anti-abortion
reasons,
person.
Anthony.
I'm just saying that
Except they let
let
them
them tell you that so you can learn from them.
What am I learning? That they are in a cult. I mean, that's what I feel like I
Well,
learned
you
when
are
I talk
not
to the
doing
MAGAs
a very
now.
good job of removing your emotions in this conversation.
How you become when you do sign up, that's it. Get your camera on.
Oh,
Sounds like you want to do an interview?
Wow.
No, I don't.
Ready?
I have nothing to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well,
We have ways to.
that's what we're looking for.